So these are the things that, I had a patient today, we stopped 4 medicines. We love it. I know people don't believe this, but we don't get a commission on putting people on more medicines, right? But there's always this perception that, oh, my doctor's putting me on this med. The reason they're doing that is because we're too busy to say, hey, I can't sit for an hour with every patient and explain this stuff. So it shows that you guys care about your health enough to be here, at least to hear about it. You may say it's nuts or whatever you want to say, but at least you're going to hear about it. And I think the testimonies of people here and what you see will impact you. And I think my prayer is that doctors in town will start to understand this stuff. I know cardiologists that I'm working with and other doctors I'm talking to, and I say, let me explain a little bit to you. So in 5 minutes, usually we can get the point across because they understand all the science. We don't have to go through an hour and a half like we do with you guys. But it's surprising and sad how much docs don't understand this stuff at all, and we just keep doing the same thing over and over with bad results, and we keep doing the same thing. So my dilemma was this. I started understanding this stuff for my own stuff because I'm down about 45 pounds or so. But it was my struggle. A lot of docs have never struggled with that. They've never had this battle, so they never really had to look into it. So they think, hey, I diet and exercise, and I do fine. You should do the same thing. And they don't understand the underlying pathology. So my dilemma was this. I started understanding this stuff, and then I started working with patients, but I had no nutritionist to send them to. So I harassed Jeff Kotterman back there at Tri-System and said, hey, look, this is important. I need someone in town. I trust your integrity. I know you. But you're doing the wrong stuff. It doesn't work for my patients. It works for ultramarathon runners and triathletes that are insulin sensitive already. So we have to understand this and start working towards it. And then by a miracle, Gregory moves here, and she was in Florida, moved here in October. I'll get it right this time. And really is an answer. She's an answer for us because we need people who get this stuff. And so she has a website called Killin' It Keto. And she has a 21-day challenge. It's very helpful because people can go on there and you get a little bit each day rather than having an overwhelming amount of information like we did to you last week. And so Rachel has a lot of letters after her name, way more than mine. I only have 2, and she has like 20 or something like that. But she's a licensed nutritionist. She's board certified. She's awesome, and you guys are going to know that right now when she comes up. But she's here to tell you the nuts and bolts and so that you understand what you're doing, because it's super scary to get out on your own. You really don't understand. And sometimes people hit a plateau and they're struggling. They don't realize, gosh, you got to get rid of this and this, or you got to add this to it. So having someone who understands is really going to benefit you. I did it on my own. I didn't really have, I just looked at podcasts. Oh, by the way, how many people here heard about us through the Two Keto Dudes podcast? Right? Like 5 people? Okay, good. Well, we're glad you're here. We're glad you listened. So, Rachel, thank you so much for coming.
Cool. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, guys. Super excited to be here and talk to you guys about the low-carbohydrate ketogenic diet. Just a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about today. Just go through how I got here, how I found keto, what it is, how does it compare to some of the other popular diets out there, what is ketosis, just a quick run through, not really into a lot of the science stuff, but just a quick overview, and then what do you eat. The majority of this presentation is going to be showing you what you can eat, substitutions for high-carb foods. There's a substitution for everything, and you're going to learn that today. Also, common mistakes. There's a lot of mistakes that people make in the beginning, so I'm going to go through a few of the most common ones, and then the benefits. So the health benefits, cognitive benefits, all the therapeutic benefits that come along with following this type of lifestyle. So this is a picture I really love. Keto is a journey, a long and tasty journey. This is very true. So it's going to be different for everybody. I always tell people keto is not a magic weight loss pill. Yes, you will see results probably faster and more consistent than you would have with any other type of diet that you've followed. But a lot of people think, okay, I can go on this diet. A diet is something that's short term. So if you look at it that way, you're never going to be successful in the long term. And if you say you go on a ketogenic diet for a few months, you see success, and then you go back to what you were doing before, you're just going to end up back where you were before. So you have to find things that can make it into a lifestyle, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So just a little background how I discovered the ketogenic diet. So I was looking for a topic to do my master's thesis on in grad school. I went to grad school for nutrition and exercise physiology, and my advisor told me to pick a topic that I didn't really know much about because I was going to be studying it for the next 2 years. So I ended up finding the ketogenic diet. I read a book in about a day, and I was just fascinated by everything. Started doing more research and decided to do a 6-week study in non-elite CrossFit athletes looking at the ketogenic diet. So the study was super successful. Over 6 weeks, the participants were able to lose a significant amount of body weight and body fat while still maintaining their muscle mass. So you can see it right here. So this is their weight loss. These are the people who are in the ketogenic group in blue, and the red group was just your standard American diet. Body fat is here, and then muscle mass. So you can see they lost a tiny bit, but that was nothing compared to over here. So that's a really big thing to understand, because with a lot of diets, yes, you can lose some weight in a significant amount of time if you really, focus on reducing your calories and stuff like that, but you're going to lose muscle along with that. So this is pretty cool. And so when I saw after the 6 weeks that, it really did work, I did more research into it, started adopting it as my own lifestyle. And I went and presented this research at a national conference, and I met people who were already in the ketogenic space. And then I just kind of started talking to them, started looking at their research, and it just kind of blew up from there. So this was this study was done about 3 years ago. So, yep. So just getting into what the ketogenic diet is. So this is just a quick history lesson of where the term ketogenic was coined. So it was discovered by a doctor named Dr. Russell Wadel in 1924 at the Mayo Clinic, and it was discovered to treat childhood epilepsy. So it was super effective in treating children with epilepsy, but it kind of fell out of fashion and was pushed under the rug when the pharmaceutical companies kind of swooped in and said, hey, here's a drug, just take this, you don't have to follow a diet, just take this medicine. So people did that, and they listened to the pharmaceutical companies, and that's kind of what we're facing today too with a lot of these other diseases. We're told that we can just take a drug and everything can go away, but we know that that's not true. You have to treat the underlying cause and try to prevent these diseases rather than getting to that stage where you do have to treat them. So this is where the ketogenic diet comes in, or a lifestyle. So even though all of this was happening, there was still a lot of research that was going on with the ketogenic diet in therapeutics, weight loss, health, and even in sports performance. A lot of this research kind of got swept under the rug with the low-fat craze that, the last few decades came about. So a lot of this stuff was hidden in the politics. People didn't really know about it. But thankfully, it's starting to come to light again. So I'm sure you guys have heard of ketosis. It's a little bit of a buzzword now, but it's for good reason. So what exactly is the ketogenic diet? So it's a little bit hard to see, but basically it's a low-carbohydrate, moderate protein, high-fat diet. So if you look at this chart, this is your fat. So the majority of your food is going to be fat, so about 70 to 80% fat, 20 to 25% protein, and about 5 to 10% carbs. So this is the basic breakdown, and it's going to differ from person to person. So in general, the typical guidelines are if you keep your carbs under a total of 50 grams per day, less for some people and more for others, that's kind of the standard guidelines that you can get into a ketogenic state, and that's what I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So again, it's not a diet. Whoops. It's a lifestyle. Sorry, that was supposed to be cool. Lifestyle. All right. So this slide is kind of just showing you, a lot of people ask me what the difference between a ketogenic diet and other diets out there are. So if you look at the bottom here, this is a well-formulated ketogenic diet, and you have the vertical axis here, this is carbs and protein here. So it's lower on the carbs and lower on the protein, compared to a paleo diet, which is still lower carb, but it's not low enough to put you into a ketogenic state, because it's a little bit higher in carbs and it's higher in protein. Same with the Mediterranean diet, which is a higher fat diet as well, but it's still pretty high in carbs. So this is a 30% carbs, it's just around 30 to 40. And then you have the standard American diet, which is about 50 to 60% carbohydrates and the rest protein. And then the Ornish diet up here, which is not very popular, I don't think, but that's a very high carb, low fat diet. So we want to be around here. So this is a slide I love. It kind of just shows you the endless cycle that a lot of us are going through. So when you consume carbohydrates, what happens is they turn, whatever the carbohydrate is, it turns into sugar. So this sugar is called glucose, which I'm sure many of you have heard. But when you consume carbohydrates, you raise your blood glucose. Right when that happens, there's a hormone in your body called insulin, and insulin is there to take the sugar out of your blood and put it in your cells. So whenever you have high blood sugar, insulin's released, and it takes that sugar out of your blood and puts it in your cells, and that's how you get energy. And insulin is known as the fat storage hormone. So whenever insulin is around, it's telling your body, okay, let's hold on to this food, hold on to this sugar, and store it as fat rather than release it. And so that's kind of the cycle that happens. So when you eat carbs or eat sugar, your blood sugar spikes, your insulin spikes. The more carbs you eat, the higher it spikes, and then the lower it crashes. So that's when, if you've ever eaten like a high carb meal, a few hours later, you get that blood sugar crash, you get hungry, tired, and then you want more carbs. So it's an endless cycle that repeats because you're consuming sugar, spiking your blood sugar, spiking your insulin, dropping, cycle continues. So what if there was a way to, just stop this cycle from the beginning? And there is. That's ketosis. So the basic definition of ketosis is a metabolic state of using fat for fuel. So like we saw on the previous slide, when you take in a certain amount of carbs, your blood sugar rises, and your pancreas secretes insulin to take that sugar out of the blood and put it in your cells for energy. In ketosis, when you decrease your carbs enough, you deplete your store of sugar. So stored sugar in the body is just called glycogen. That's just the storage form of glucose. So when you can deplete that glycogen enough, you give your body the ability to tap into its fat stores and release something called fatty acids from your fat stores. And what happens is these fatty acids travel to your liver, and your liver can turn them into ketones. And so ketones is what is used for energy in your muscles, your brain, your heart, and all of that. So how do you know when you're in a state of ketosis? There's a few things that happen. So you'll have reduced hunger because you won't be spiking your blood sugar constantly, and it's constantly dropping. And ketones also have a very appetite suppressant effect to them, which is another reason why you won't feel hungry all the time. You won't get that craving or that urge to eat every few hours. You'll have more mental clarity, improved mood, more relaxed, and increased energy. So you'll have that stable energy throughout the day, and you'll have more energy because you're not continuously spiking and dropping, which happens with carbs. With ketones, you're just kind of going to be steady the whole entire day and at a higher level of steady. So if you can see this slide, it says, which fuel tank would you like access to? So there's two fuel tanks in your body. You have the glycogen tank, which is what I was talking about earlier. It's the stored form of glucose, but we can only store about 2,000 calories of that in our body at a time. But then you have the fat tank. So even the skinniest person has a ton of fat, about 40,000 calories or more on their body at one time. The issue is you can never tap into that fat because you're always using glucose. So if you're always consuming carbs, your insulin's high, and like we said, insulin is the fat storage hormone. So whenever insulin is around, it tells your body, I'm not gonna use my fat, I'm just gonna continue to store it. So that's kind of where this all comes together. So going into what you eat on keto. So this is a basic food pyramid of the ketogenic diet. If you see at the bottom, you have healthy fats, so coconut oil, avocados, butter, olive oil, lots of meat, so fatty meats, fish, salmon, green leafy vegetables, non-starchy vegetables. This is cream, not milk. I'm going to explain that in the next few slides. Eggs, full-fat cheese, and a little bit of nuts and seeds, and a little bit of berries. So I'd like a quadruple bacon cheeseburger with extra bacon. Hold the bread, I'm on a diet. That's my favorite picture on this presentation. So the next few slides, I'm going to go into the different foods, so within carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Some of the foods can be categorized in both categories, so I kind of picked, most of them you can categorize into their own, but there's a few that I'm going to go over. And this isn't a comprehensive list, this is just most of the general foods. So on a ketogenic diet, you want to enjoy regularly leafy vegetables, so leafy greens, spinach, lettuce, collards, asparagus, broccoli. Most vegetables that grow above ground are usually okay because they're less starchy. The ones that grow underground, like potatoes and all of that stuff, those you want to avoid. They have more carbs and more sugar. And then avocado. So a lot of people don't know, but avocado is a fruit. And it's actually, it has a good amount of fat in it. It's a very nutrient-dense food, but it still has some carbs. However, avocados have, for about half a regular avocado, it's 15 grams of fat and about 9 grams of carbs, but it does have 7 grams of fiber. So that fiber is, I'll talk about net carbs in a few minutes, but avocados are a really great fruit. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. So you can definitely enjoy those on a regular basis. And then some vegetables in moderation would be things like eggplant and onions and peppers. Those are still okay, but they still do have a little bit higher carb content and sugar content than the other ones. So you're going to want to limit those to, a little bit of every day or every other day. Just be aware of them. Same with fruits. So berries are probably the only fruit that you're going to focus on consuming because they have the least amount of sugar compared to a lot of the other fruits. So most other fruits, bananas, apples, you're going to want to avoid those because they have a ton of carbohydrates in them and a ton of sugar. And even though it's natural sugar, it still has that effect on your blood glucose. Natural coconut meat, lemons, limes, and then nuts and seeds and nut butters and nut flours. So those are also considered fats, but they're carbs as well. So in general, I tell people when they're first starting off to not go crazy with the nuts because the carbs can add up. So stick with about like 1 to 2 servings a day to begin with. So those are the moderate. And then ones to avoid for vegetables, like I said, your starchy vegetables, so beets and corn, and then the potatoes. Fruits, most fruit juice, all fruit juices. And then all your grains, so your wheat, bread, pasta, cereal, oats, rice, barley. You're going to want to avoid those because they have a very high carb content. And if you think about it, if you're trying to stay under 50 grams a day, these add up over the day. So you just want to be aware of that. And then obviously your sweets and your candies, milk. A lot of people don't realize, but milk is actually considered a carbohydrate. Even whole milk. If you go to the store and look on the nutrition label, for 1 cup of milk, it's about 8 grams of protein, 8 grams of fat, and 12 grams of carbs. And all of those 12 grams are sugar. So even that's in whole milk. So you're going to want to avoid milk. You can have heavy cream, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide, and then processed foods. So for protein, you can enjoy most, meats, poultry, chicken, bacon, lamb, whole eggs. So you're going to want to eat the yolks. Don't avoid those. Seafood, mostly all seafood. Focus on the salmon because they're a little bit fattier. Dairy, you can have full-fat cheeses, beef and chicken broths. Those are really good. And then in moderation, you're going to want to just be careful of your processed meats, so the deli meats and the sausages. A lot of those have fillers in them, and the fillers are usually extra sugar and extra carbs. So when you're shopping, you just want to make sure you read the nutrition label for those and keep them in moderation. Same with skinless chicken breasts and turkey breasts. Those have a lot of protein and not a lot of fat. So protein, if you have too much protein, in a lot of people can actually cause insulin spike if you have too much at once. So you're going to want to either stick with the fattier cuts, so your chicken thighs, or if you have a chicken breast, add a little bit of fat to that. So have it with a little bit of avocado or olive oil. Dairy and Greek yogurt, so full-fat plain Greek yogurt and full-fat cottage cheese, you can have that in moderation. Those still do have a little bit higher carbs, so you just want to be aware. And then protein powders, most protein powders are very high in protein, most of them are 20 to 30 grams. So you just want to be careful with that because then, again, that's a lot of protein at one time. And then ones to avoid, any fake meat out there. So a lot of the stuff that you find in McDonald's and things like that. For cheese, definitely avoid any processed cheese, so American cheese, Velveeta. If you have to actually look at the Velveeta package, it has like a ton of carbs in it, and it's all just fillers and sugar and extra stuff that is not good. And then anything that's low-fat cheese, low-fat yogurt, fat-free, anything, just stay away from it. They take the fat out and they replace it with sugar, and we don't want that. And then beans and legumes again. Fat. So with fat, you're going to want to, you can enjoy, regularly healthy oils, so coconut oil, avocado oil, MCT oil or powder, which is just a more concentrated version of coconut oil. Then olive oil, olives, all your animal fats, like I was talking about. These are your animal meats are usually a combination of protein and fat. Butter, dairy, like I said, full-fat cheeses. You can have heavy cream in moderation. Don't, pour a whole carton into your coffee, but a tablespoon or two is good. And then some other ones are mayo, but you want to get the ones that are made with avocado oil or healthier oils or homemade. And then something called pili nuts. These are actually kind of a new phenomenon. They're from discovered in the Philippines, and they actually are the most keto-friendly nut out there. They only have 1 gram of carbs per like a fourth a cup. And I have more information on my website if you're interested in those, but they're amazing. Moderation, so for dairy, you want to moderate and just be aware of cream cheese and sour cream and half because those still do have some carbs in them, but you can still have those, but just be aware. Same with the nuts and seeds like I talked about, and then your coconut flours, almond flours, those are going to be the main flours that you use to replace a traditional flour. They do still have some carbs in them, but they're definitely a way better choice than traditional flour. And then your nut butters as well. And you're going to want to avoid all the processed oils. So canola, vegetable, sunflower, cottonseed, all these oils are just made in a factory. They're not heart healthy like they claim on the label. They're not good for you, so just steer clear of those. Same with margarine, and like I said, anything that's fat-free or low-fat, just avoid it. So what are net carbs? A lot of people ask this question, and there's some confusion out there about it. So net carbs are basically just total carbs minus your fiber. So if you look at a nutrition label like this, you have your total carbs right here, and then you have your fiber and your sugar. So net carbs are your total carbs minus your fiber. So 10 minus 5 would be 5. So this has 5 grams of net carbs. The issue is that with this is that a lot of companies are starting to come out with low carb and keto friendly bars and stuff like that they claim on their labels have 1 or 2 net carbs. And some of these are okay, depending on the company and depending on what they're using in their products. But in general, when you're first starting off, I always tell people, avoid packaged stuff as much as possible. You should be getting your carbs from your vegetables, your small amount of fruit, your nuts and seeds, and then the small amount of carbs that are in dairy. So those are the 4 main categories that you should focus on, because if you think about it, that's going to add up over a course of a day. Those carbs are going to add up to that 50, so, or less if you 30 to 50. So I would stay away from that. And this is just an example. This is an Atkins bar. So you can see it says only 4 grams net carbs here, 1 gram sugar. But this is the ingredient list. So I know you can't read that. You shouldn't be able to. I mean, even when it's on the package, I can't read it. So this is just something that you look at labels, read things. If you see a nutrition label that has all of these ingredients, that's just way too many. So once you see something that's more than 5 or 6 ingredients, just put it down. You want to avoid some of the things that are in this label, because I know it's hard to see, are things like dextrose, ACE-K, maltitol, maltodextrin, and IMO fiber. I'm not going to butcher that word. So these are sugar alcohols, and IMO is a type of fiber, but these all have been shown to have an effect on blood glucose levels. So I'm going to go into it in the next few slides, but just be aware of these, and if you see anything that has this in it, I would just stay away. So one of the big things that a lot of people say when they are looking to start a ketogenic diet is that they think it's very limiting. I completely disagree. It is not limiting at all, and I promise you that any high-carb food you can make low-carb if you just have the right resources. So here are a few examples. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but so you have regular flour or wheat flour, like I talked about. Instead of that, you can do coconut flour or almond flour. Instead of breadcrumbs, you can use things like pork rinds or crushed almonds. Instead of sugar, there's some sugar substitutes out there, like stevia is one of them that for most people, doesn't have much of an effect on blood glucose levels. And then there's another one called erythritol that doesn't have much effect either. And yes, these are natural sweeteners, and they still are a little bit processed. And I always have people say, well, why would I use an artificial sweetener when I can just use sugar? Because those natural sweeteners are processed, right? Well, I kind of tell them sugar's processed. Like, you don't just go get sugar out of your garden. Like, it goes through 20 different steps. It's bleached. It's not natural. It's completely processed. So if you can take that out of the picture and substitute it with something that doesn't have an effect on your blood sugar levels, which is what we're trying to avoid, then why not use that? But again, you have to be careful, because these can affect different people in different ways. If you're more insulin resistant than someone else, you could have a little bit, these could affect you a little bit. So it's kind of finding what works for you and testing those things out.
Stevia is actually good for your pancreas.
Yes. So then with milk, you have, instead of regular milk, like we talked about, it's a carbohydrate. You can do unsweetened almond milk, coconut milk. Just make sure they're unsweetened. Instead of rice, you can do cauliflower rice. A lot of places now, I remember about a year ago, I was making cauliflower rice. It's a little bit labor intensive when you make it yourself, but they didn't really have any alternatives. And now you can find in your frozen aisle in any grocery store, if you go into, you can find frozen cauliflower rice. I keep like 10 packs in my freezer, and you can do anything with them. Pasta, you can use things like zucchini noodles or something called shirataki noodles. Shirataki, I don't know if any of you have seen, they're called miracle noodles. They're actually made out of something called glucomannan, which is a fiber from Japan. And the glucomannan is very absorbent, so these noodles are actually made of 97% water and only 3% fiber. So they're super filling. They're very, low calorie, low carb, and they really are a miracle noodle. Shirataki noodles? Yeah. They should be on your food list and under other. And they're on I have some of these keto alternatives on my website as well if you're interested. And then mashed potatoes, you can substitute for mashed cauliflower. Pizza crust, you can make pizza crust out of almond, coconut flour, cheese. Instead of a latte with milk, you can do a fatty coffee. So you can use a little bit of butter and coconut oil, things like bulletproof coffee is what a lot of people call it. And then instead of tortillas, you can do lettuce wraps, lower carb tortillas. You can make your own with the almond flour and the coconut flour. You can make them taste good. I promise. This is just another slide showing alternatives. So I was talking about the cauliflower rice and the zoodles, and then tacos. You can do cheese shell tacos. So these are amazing, and they're super easy to make. Instead of using a regular flour tortilla, you're using cheese. Mashed potatoes, you can do mashed cauliflower, like I said, and then pork rinds or cheese crisps instead of chips, and then choosing darker chocolate over milk chocolate. So those are just a few swaps. So the next few slides are just going to be pictures of kind of my food. I'm not a professional photographer, so these are taken from my Instagram page. I have an Instagram that I post just recipes that I make and food that I eat. Some of these are some of my friends as well. But so an example breakfast would just be bacon and eggs with some avocado. You can do, like I was talking about, bulletproof coffee, which is just coffee with some fat in it. So coconut oil, butter, MCT oil. With this, you just want to be careful that you're not putting like a whole stick of butter in, because that's one mistake that a lot of people make too is no, it's not calories in, calories out, but calories do matter to an extent. So if you're eating 10,000 calories a day, even if it's fat, you're probably going to gain a little weight. But if your goal is to lose weight, you just want to be aware of that. So one of the sayings that I like to tell people is carbs are a limit, protein is a goal, and fat is a lever. So if you keep your carbs low and you hit your protein goal and you use fat to fill you up, then you'll be fine. These are waffles that I make with a little bit of collagen protein powder. It's a combination of collagen and MCT powder, which is a fat. And then that's just some homemade whipped cream. It's just heavy cream with a little bit of stevia. Super easy to make. You can make egg muffins, so grab and go. I sometimes make these on the weekend and then just warm them up throughout the week. You can even make bagels. So this is a low-carb bagel made out of what a lot of people call fathead dough. It's very popular in the ketogenic world. And I have recipes for this on my Instagram. So examples of lunch, you can do a Cobb salad with some bacon, guacamole. Go to Chipotle, get a salad with no rice and beans, but you can have the cheese and the sour cream and the guacamole and the salsa. Yeah, tomatoes in moderation. I go with the spicy salsa. You have a burger with like I said, bacon and cheese. Just throw out the bun. Instead of French fries, do a side of veggies. Wings. So you can enjoy buffalo wings with buffalo sauce. Avoid like the breaded ones, obviously, and any of like the teriyaki ones, because those will be loaded with sugar. And if you don't like avocados or guacamole, you can still survive. Don't worry. I just really like guacamole, so that's why a lot of my pictures are avocados. And again, another avocado. This is like a typical lunch for me. I just throw together, hard-boiled eggs, some cheese, avocado, and you can do, this looks weird, but it's actually really good, some goat cheese in it. So that's kind of my typical meals. Snacks, you can do cheese crisps and guacamole again, or cheese crisps and anything else. Deviled eggs, make a snack plate with cheese and meat, nuts. You can do bacon chips with guacamole or any other type of dip. Any other type of cheese dip, buffalo chicken dip, that's one of my favorites. This is just a snack that I made for the holidays. It was a little meat with some cheese again and drizzle of olive oil. These are pork rinds with guacamole again. Sorry, I should have mixed it up a little bit. So dinner, you can make it super simple. Just pick a protein, a type of meat, pair it with veggie, and instead of your starch, just do an extra veggie. But this is cream spinach with a lot of cheese and cream, so it probably tastes better than a piece of bread would, in my opinion. But cheesecake? You can make low-carb cheesecake. It's on the next slide. These are the cheese shell tacos I was talking about. So just make a cheese shell instead of a normal tortilla. These are zoodles. So this is shrimp scampi with the zoodles. That's just zucchini noodles with a creamy shrimp sauce. Wings again, and that's cauliflower mac and cheese. So your traditional mac and cheese, just sub the noodles for cauliflower. Because the noodles don't really have any flavor anyway. So why can't you just, sub them for something that's a little bit healthier? Quinoa is still higher in carbs, so yeah. And then these are the shirataki noodles I was talking about. I usually use them to make Asian dishes, like stir fries and soups and stuff like that. They have a weird texture at first, but you get used to them, and they have a lot of volume to them. Like I said, they're 97% water. So if you're looking for volume, you're going to want to focus on having like a lot of veggies, non-starchy veggies, and these will fill you up as well. So they're a good choice. And then this is like my favorite meal, keto pizza. So it's buffalo chicken pizza with the fathead dough I was talking about, and it's super easy to make. It's like 4 ingredients. It's awesome. And then you can even enjoy, a glass of wine here and there. Some desserts. So this is what I call a fat bomb. If you just, go on Pinterest or Google and just type in keto fat bomb, there'll be like thousands of recipes, I promise. So these are just a little bit of dark chocolate mixed with coconut oil, and then there's some coconut butter in it. Cheesecake. Who said cheesecake? That's a cheesecake. Sorry, it's a little hard to see. That's a cheesecake I made for Thanksgiving. I made it low carb. I have the recipe on my Instagram as well. Killing it keto. This is ice cream, a low carb keto ice cream that I made with a little dark chocolate on top. Brownies. That's a keto cookie with a little bit of cream cheese fluff. And then those are cinnamon rolls or muffins that I made. So it's just to show you that it's not limiting. Like, you can literally make anything low carb. And if, there's so many different resources that are out now. If you just Google keto and then anything you want to make keto, you'll find a recipe for it. And then it doesn't have to be complicated either. So you can do something called lazy keto, which is just, being lazy. No. So breakfast, just typical eggs and bacon, those muffin cups I was talking about, burgers, Cobb salads, just, picking a protein, like a good protein and a veggie, and then pairing a fat with it. Different sides, like I talked about, the cauliflower and Parmesan crisps, stuff like that. There's a lot of options. And then even eating out at restaurants. I know this is a little hard to see, but you can really make anything keto if you try. So at burger joints, the bunless burger, Indian restaurants, you can do like grilled lamb. Italian restaurants, just skip the pasta or do, you have to skip the pasta, sorry. Steak or chicken. I remember once I went out to a restaurant and they had this like short rib bolognese, I can't say that word. And it was served over pasta, obviously, but I just asked the waitress if I could get it over broccoli or any type of green veggie, and she was like, sure. So it was actually spinach squash, spaghetti squash. Spaghetti squash, I think. Yeah, that's okay too. Yeah, that does have a little bit of carbs in it, but it's better than like I would say avoid the butternut squash because that's a little sweeter. But spaghetti squash you can enjoy in moderation. And then fast food too. I obviously avoid fast food as much as possible, but there's still many options to choose from. And I can't go into all of them right now, but that's kind of what like I do with my 21-day challenge is I kind of go through all of this stuff in detail. So with keto, a lot of people, I stole this from Dr. Lenzkes' slide. So this happens a lot. A lot of people start keto and then they'll Google like one thing and try to start right away. That causes a lot of issues because if you don't really understand like what's going on and what you need to do to succeed, it's really hard from the start. So a lot of people get discouraged in the beginning. So that's why it's good to know the common mistakes and how to kind of combat them. So one of the first ones is not having enough fiber. So your green, like I was talking about before, your green leafy veggies. A lot of people, fat is very nutrient dense, so you don't need that much to fill up your plate. So if you're focusing on just consuming fat, your brain's gonna kind of tell you, okay, my plate, it's looking small. There's only a little piece of meat and some fat. So if you're consuming enough fiber and filling it up on like those green leafy veggies, it's gonna add more volume, and it's also good for your gut and filling you up. So you want to focus on that. And then electrolytes are a really big thing. A lot of people talk about the keto flu, which is basically when you decrease your carbs, you can notice sometimes like headaches and fatigue, and that's just because you're depleted a lot of your electrolytes. So carbohydrates, with every 1 gram of carb, you hold about 3 to 4 grams of water in your body. So if you kind of cut out the carbs, you're going to be flushing your body of all that water, and if you don't replace that, then you're going to run into some issues. Because the most important one is sodium. So sodium is kind of like water's sidekick. So if you're flushing out water, sodium's going to go with it as well, and that's going to cause some issues. And then also with sodium, your insulin levels, when they are lower and when they decrease a lot, your kidneys start to let go of a lot more sodium as well. And so if you're not replacing that, then you're going to have some issues. So that's one of the biggest things. People are not replacing their salt. So I tell a lot of people to always, salt your water, especially in the beginning, with good salt like Himalayan sea salt or Celtic sea salt. Avoid table salt because it's very processed. Another thing is not eating enough fat. So a lot of us are afraid of fat, and that's not our fault. That's the lies that we've been told over the past few decades. So it's kind of just getting over the fear of fat is a huge thing. And that's going to take time. In the beginning, when I first tried keto, I'd made all of these mistakes. I went low carb and low fat at the same time, and I just felt terrible. Eating too many calories, so there is a limit. It depends on you, but you got to find that kind of sweet spot. But it's definitely going to be a lot easier than it would be with a traditional diet because the fat will be very satiating, so you won't be as hungry all the time, and along with the ketones. Like I said, you need to replenish your water because you're going to be losing a lot. Another mistake is eating too many carbs. Like I said, they add up over the day. So you just want to make sure you're aware of that and kind of keeping track. Some people like to track with different apps like MyFitnessPal and stuff like that, and that's totally cool if that's your thing. A lot of people don't like to do that, so it really just depends what works for you, and you can definitely succeed with both ways. And then not exercising as well. I believe it's 95% diet, but if you still need to add a little exercise in there just to get moving. And then, like I said, with the salt, definitely focus on consuming Himalayan pink sea salt or Celtic sea salt or red salt. Avoid the table salt because they really just take all the nutrients out of it. And then just talking a little bit about the benefits. So there's a lot of different benefits that come along with the ketogenic lifestyle, and it goes beyond weight loss. So weight loss is kind of just an effect of it. You're going to have reduced hunger, you're going to have regulated blood sugar levels, and you're going to burn more fat. Another really cool thing is it's going to kind of change the way your brain works. So you're going to have improved mental clarity and then also some improved athletic performance. So this is just kind of a checklist of all the things that we were talking about. So fat loss, muscle preservation, sustained energy, increased focus and energy throughout the day, better mood, better sleep, better digestion. So all of these are a result of decreasing your carbs and getting into that ketogenic state. And this is just showing you, this was a study that was done looking at high fat versus high carb meals. And again, just showing you after a high carb meal, you're hungry again a few hours later, whereas after a high fat meal, you're more satiated, so you can go longer without feeling like you need to eat every few hours. And then the cognitive benefits, this is one that I'm really focusing on now, and this is kind of what I love about this lifestyle. So your brain is made out of about 60% fat. So if you think about it, if something's made of that much of something, then it's going to need that to function properly. So fat-free is not for me, and it shouldn't be for any of you. Ketones. So ketones, like I said, are an amazing source of energy. They actually supply more energy per oxygen consumed. They provide energy at a faster rate. They help regulate your energy levels, like I talked about. You're not getting that spike and drop in your blood sugar and your insulin. And they also help with inflammation, reducing inflammation. This is a really cool picture. It just kind of shows you your brain all scattered on sugar and craving sugar. And then on ketones, you're kind of just like chill and relaxed, and you have steady energy throughout the day. And then this is another one. Being in ketosis is like seeing life in 4K versus standard definition. And this is completely true. And then just looking at a few of the therapeutic benefits. So like I said, there was still a lot of research going on, during the low-fat craze, and it was kind of kicked under the rug, but it was still happening. And it's now starting to come more to light, which is amazing, and there's more research being done now. But there's some of the therapeutic benefits with diabetes, epilepsy, like we talked about, cancer, different neurological diseases, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. There's a lot of research going on right now, and it's very exciting. So just kind of be on the lookout for that. So there are always going to be carbs everywhere, and a lot of your friends and family members, if you do decide to try this out, they're probably going to look at you weird and say, here, you should eat this, you should eat that. But once you start seeing results and you start feeling better, they're going to see that, and then they're going to ask you what you're doing. So just remember that. So I love this. Keto is not sustainable. Watch me. It is sustainable. It's a lifestyle, and I promise you can find a replacement for anything high carb. And if you can't, just email me. So thank you guys for listening. If you're interested, I do a 21-day challenge on my website, which I found just from working with people over the years that when throwing a lot of this information at once, and this was just, a snippet of it, there's so much more to learn. I found that doing it over a course of 3 weeks or even longer, it's a lot easier to digest, and you can get a lot of tips and tricks and different resources to look into. So that's kind of why I put it together. And then the best photo of the night is here. Don't blame the butter for what the bread did. Thank you, guys. So we're going to have Jill come up. I met Jill over Instagram, actually. I started following her and her journey when I was back in Florida, and she has an amazing story. So I'm just going to leave this here for you as she comes and talks about her transformation.
I think I know why you moved to San Diego. It's the avocados.
Yeah, actually, you're right. So this is Jill, and this is her transformation.
Hi, guys. Do y'all want to stand up for a second? It's been a lot of information. Just shake it out, and I can shake it out, too. You're all staring at me in a bikini, so get the wiggles out. All right, awesome. I know it's a lot of information to soak in tonight. Just had a few words before we close it out for the night. The other day when I was thinking about my talk and thinking about what I had prepared, I realized a lot of it is just pretty dry and analytical because by nature I am dry and analytical. I work as a finance manager. I work in corporate finance. So I kind of come from things with data and spreadsheets and analysis. But I started kind of looking back at my journey, and I started looking through my closet. And I do have a few remnant pieces left from my closet, and I came across my old suit pants, the last suit that I actually fit in, and so I just wanted to kind of show you. And actually, when I pulled these out, I honestly thought they were too small for me. I couldn't get suit pants on at my highest weight, and I thought maybe I'll have like a I don't know what I was thinking. These are 18, and I'm a 4 or a 6 now. So, but in my head, I'm not seeing this dramatic change because it's happened over time. But the significance of the pants is not the size difference. It's really the person that was filling these pants, the person that was in these pants every day. I was miserable, and I was overwhelmed, and I was stressed, and I couldn't manage my life. My job was incredibly stressful. My family life was incredibly stressful. My kids needed me. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, or 5 and 3, somewhere right in that point when I came to my reckoning. My husband needed me. My manager needed me. My employees needed me. Everybody needed me. And nobody was taking care of me. I was giving and giving and giving, and I wasn't getting anything back. And I was empty, and I really felt like there was a vampire just sucking everything out of me, and I was just left with nothing. And on top of that, I had this physical stuff going on top of the stress. So I had this emotional and this physical stuff going on. And what I mean by that is that, let me just take you through a day of what my day looked like. So I would get out of bed, and I'd put my feet on the ground, and I bet a lot of you can relate to this. I'd put my feet on the ground, and I'd have shooting pain up my feet immediately, first thing in the morning. And I couldn't put my feet flat on the ground, and I'd walk on the side of my foot, trying to hobble to the bathroom, to go to the bathroom. I couldn't put my foot flat on the ground. I had really severe plantar fasciitis. And I had it from the time my daughter was born, and at this point my daughter was 5 years old. So I was walking around with plantar fasciitis for 5 years. And I tried everything to get rid of it, everything, the boot, slept with the stupid boot on my foot, nothing worked. For those of you that don't know, plantar fasciitis is a problem with inflammation on the bottom of your foot, the band that goes across the bottom of your foot up through your heel. And it gets so inflamed that you can't stretch it out to the normal gait of walking. And so in the morning, after you've had a night of being off of it, it's so inflamed, it takes time to warm it back up to be able to walk on it. And I would have this pain all the time, all day. If I happened to be on my feet all day one day, it was way worse getting up in the morning the next day. So I had this physical pain just shooting in my feet. At the end, I was wearing those grandma and grandpa nurse shoes, like the New Balance that are all white. Maybe I might see some in here, but I'm with you. Those are the only shoes I could wear. I could not wear normal shoes. I swear, that was all I was wearing, were these New Balance squishy shoes. That's all I could. I couldn't wear dress shoes. I couldn't wear anything. That was the only thing that didn't make my feet hurt. And I felt like a prisoner in my own wardrobe, in my own body. So I would get up in the morning like that, and then I'd start my day at work, and I would drink diet soda, I would drink energy drinks, I would eat fast food, anything to be able to concentrate at my job and stare at the computer and multitask with, working with my employees, just trying to focus on what it was I had to do for the day. And then, barely being able to finish the day when my family would come home, and my kids and my husband, and it was just chaos, and I was tired, and I was exhausted, and I was disengaged. I didn't want to focus with my family. I didn't want to spend time with them. I was really resentful that I was in this place in my life where I was just getting nothing back. I was just giving and giving and giving, and I was in pain, and I was overwhelmed. I couldn't do this all. The other thing is that I really felt like I had no choice in the matter. I made a lot more money than my husband. I made about 50% more than my husband did. I was a primary breadwinner in the family, and that was a lot of pressure on me to keep this job and not lose this job so that we were able to afford the life that we're living. And so then at night, I would have so much anxiety about the next day that I would drink some wine, or I'd drink some, I think that's a Ballast Point Sculpin in my hand right there. Not kidding. You can see the cream can on the top. I like IPA quite a bit. I had to give that up. But I would drink quite a bit at night to try to fall asleep. And then I would wake up between 1 and 3 in the morning, and I'd be wide awake until morning. And then I'd be exhausted in the morning because of that whole routine. And I'd start all over again, put my feet on the ground, and I'd be in pain. Just over and over and over again every single day. I was not living. I was not enjoying my life. So I came to the point about 18 months ago, and I found myself at a weight loss clinic, a medical weight loss clinic, through Scripps. And what they do there was basically a calorie restriction, low-fat diet. And it worked initially, I think mostly because I gave up a lot of alcohol, honestly. But it took about 5 months, and I lost 20 pounds. But I still had all the same inflammation issues. I still had the plantar fasciitis. I still had the sleep issues. I had cloudy urine, which is a sign of prediabetes. So I said, I can't, we were getting ready to go to Hawaii in a couple months, and I said, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to walk in Hawaii. The only way I'm going to feel better is to lose the weight. So I started Googling, diets. And I started Googling Atkins, because I'd done low-carb before weddings and stuff, and it worked. And what came up was a ketogenic diet. And started reading a little bit about it, and I thought, that sounds interesting. So I read the book Keto Clarity by Jimmy Moore and Jason Fung, and that book changed everything. And that's a great read. I'd recommend The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung as well. All the foundations are in that book before Jimmy Moore wrote his book. But I just started reading about what Chuck and what Rachel have talked about, where insulin is this hormone that keeps fat on your body, and how leptin and ghrelin are hunger and satiety hormones, and really obesity is a disease of hormones. And if you can control your hormones and manage those hormones, you can feel better and you can lose the weight. So I said, I have nothing to lose. I have nothing left to lose. I had been through a series of things over the years, but this was just the pain. I just couldn't take it anymore. So I started a couple weeks before I went to Hawaii, and yes, I did keto in Hawaii. A lot of pork and a lot of fish. And in 28 days, I was down 20 pounds. And in about 4 or 5 months, I was down 75 pounds. So the 75 on top of the 20 I had lost with the weight loss clinic, I was down about 95 pounds. And then slowly over time, I'm down about 100 pounds total. Thank you. So what I want to focus on, though, is really what made me successful and how I was able to do this. And that is really what came from within, that I made a decision to change. I decided I did not want to be miserable. I did not want to not be able to manage my life. I needed my life back. I needed to live, not just exist. And that was the turning point for me. And when in 2 weeks I started feeling a little better, and then in 4 weeks I felt awesome, and I had lost the 20 pounds in 28 days, and then in 6 weeks my plantar fasciitis was gone. I mean, the inflammation, the reduction in inflammation when you go on a ketogenic diet is amazing. Amazing. If you can stick it out, you can make it to 6 weeks, I guarantee that you're going to be feeling better. I guarantee it, because I'm living proof. So each step that I felt better, I just decided this is not a diet. I'm doing this the rest of my life. This is my lifestyle. That's it. This is the way I'm going to eat. My husband's going to eat when he's around me because I'm making his food. He can do whatever he wants when he's not around me, but I'm going to be making my food in my house like this. And that was it. I decided to change. I decided I'm not going to be that person anymore. So I started testing my blood glucose every morning. I started testing it for 30 minutes for 2 hours after a meal. I started testing my blood ketones. And those things started improving and improving. And guess what? I no longer felt like I was having a heart attack. Every day I felt like I was going to have a heart attack, and I was telling my husband, I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm going to have a heart attack. So a few statistics real quick. My A1C went from 5.9 to 5.1 in a matter of like 4 or 5 months. It's probably lower now, but that was about a year ago. My plantar fasciitis is gone. Chronic athlete's foot is gone. Chronic yeast infections are gone. Sinus allergies are gone. Sleep apnea. My sleep pattern is totally normal. I wake up like with birds singing now. I can't tell you, I've never been a morning person, ever. My mom will tell you when I was a kid, I was always late to school. I wake up like, doo-doo-doo, ready to start the day. I've never been like that in my life. And the last piece of the puzzle that improved for me, I'm going to save till after I read this quote for you. And the quote is from Brian Williamson, who hosts a podcast called the Keto Evangelist Podcast, and this is from his first episode he ever did. And it says, "Your why is your anchor. It's the thing that will guide you through the often difficult journey of changing your body, mind, and lifestyle. If you don't have a solid, honest, relevant why in place, you're unlikely to stick to your plan. Chances are you'll just let yourself go because you'll want that food to fill that emotional void." So for me, my why, and it happened today, I was outside with my son and we were playing catch. My son's 8, we were playing a little game of catch. I couldn't do that 18 months ago. A simple thing like bending down to get a ball and picking it up, I couldn't do that. I couldn't pick up a ball. 18 months ago. So for me, I'm engaged with my family. I'm playing with my kids. I go for bike rides with my kids. I can go ice skating with them. I can go hiking with them. I can go to an amusement park and not feel miserable the next day. So that is my why. And I hope all of you think about what your why is as well. Thanks.
Hey, another round of applause for Jill. That's his. And for Rachel also, because she's awesome, a lot of information, but when we were trying to put this together, it's hard because, as you can see, we don't want to keep you guys too late, and there's a lot of information. And she said, I really think you need to have Jill speak. I think it's powerful, and obviously, it's inspiring for me. Every time I just watch her, I think, man, this is incredible. So people say miracles don't happen. I think you see one back there in Chuck. You see Jill. A lot of people. There's a lot of people that have come and talked to me afterwards. Say, yeah, I lost 100 pounds. I lost 80 pounds. I'm off my meds. That's a miracle because we don't do that in Western medicine. We just don't do it anymore. So the big miracle is coming up in the next couple weeks, and I just want to preface what you've learned so far. Hopefully, will give you the tools to step on to the next step. And and one thing that we never really said, and I just want to make this clear because there's a lot of misconception out there. When they say 70 to 80% of your calories come from fat, it doesn't mean you have to eat butter for those calories. Because a lot of us have storage, right? And so I'm happy to burn this fat rather than eat extra butter all day long. So there's a misconception in the community that, oh, those guys just eat butter and they eat cheese and that's all they do. And as you can see, it's a well-balanced diet. There's a ton of good nutrition in this diet without being deprived of everything. So that being said, what this prepares you to do is to understand what Mark Wadel, and I think this is the most important thing of this whole, what we're doing. Because as Jill says, it's not just about diet, it's about emotional stuff, it's about being able to have that quiet time, to have that peace. A lot of us just don't have peace. I see my patients don't have peace, and I can't give that to them. And I can't make Jill be happy, and I can't make Jill be happy in her marriage or at home. But when she finds that in herself, when I have patients that find that, I see them come in and they're at peace, and they're not stressed, and they're sleeping okay, and they're doing better, that makes my job worthwhile, and we know we're making a difference at that point. So what Mark's going to be talking about is finding that quiet time. With fasting, there's such a and don't get me wrong, everyone doesn't have to fast here. Some people will for spiritual reasons, and that's why we started this class, but we morphed a bit to the health and nutrition because it's critical for us. But the point is, when you're in a fat adapted state, it's easy to fast. If you miss lunch, it's like, okay, no big deal. It's not like I'm stressed out, like I got to shove something down right now like we've all done. And you start realizing the Navy SEALs are doing this kind of stuff because they could be out there for a week and not eat, or 5 days, and they do just fine. So my friends who are Christian, we've had this debate, and in the Christian community and spiritual community, they think, okay, I'm going to fast, and I'm giving something up for you as a sacrifice, like we're killing the animal on the hill somewhere. So God, now you're going to do what I tell you to do. And it doesn't work that way. So we have this misconception that when we're fasting, we're manipulating God's will to what we want, and it's actually the opposite. The only way I could really explain it is when you're in a state of peace like Chuck has, and he could fast longer than anyone I know, and it's crazy stuff. He's drinking water, having his electrolytes, all that kind of stuff. But when you're in that state, you have a mental clarity, you have focus that you don't have when you're worried about where you're going to eat next, and where's my snack, what am I going to do here now, and preparing food and doing all this stuff. When you have a piece of that and you have time to do stuff like spend time with family, friends, what I compare it to is when I'm in Mission Trails Park with my dog, just hiking, not really thinking, a lot of stuff comes to me, and I have thoughts, and a lot of this came out of two of us sitting at a kitchen table talking, and all you guys are here. It's pretty amazing. But the point is, when you're out in that state, you can think, you could focus, you could relax a little bit. When you're in New York City with your phone going off and computers and texts and all this kind of stuff and cars honking, you can't have that peace. So in the faith community, that's an important thing that we can step up and have faith. And that's what Mark's going to talk about. It's not just Christian stuff. He's not going to throw Bible verses at everyone, but he's going to say, look, here's what's worked for me and what I'm doing. And when you find that peace, we lower our insulin levels down. When we're not stressed all the time, we lower our insulin levels down. So I think a lot of times we have to realize, okay, I have to take care of myself, and I have to take care of my family. But really, like Jill was saying, basically what she's saying is put on your oxygen mask first and take care of yourself. And a lot of us are overstressed, overbusy, and we don't take time to spend time with family and friends and do all that kind of stuff. So This allows you to do that, and it doesn't mean you can't take your own lunch over and have pizza with they're eating pizza and you bring your lunch and enjoy it. It's the fellowship that's important. So I think in the church, this is where the power is going to come from, and I think there's going to be a lot of cities around the country. I think there's going to be a lot of doctors and nurses and medical professionals and nutritionists in San Diego that we're going to change the course of San Diego at least, and hopefully across the country. We've had so much support from 2 keto dudes who are huge, a lot of guys. I just did another podcast. Rachel's doing tons of podcasts, and we're going to reach people because this message resonates because we all see we're out of whack. We don't have our priorities in line a lot of times, and we're just surviving. So I want us all to be like Jill and just enjoy life and enjoy stuff that we couldn't do before. To see Chuck on top of the mountain, I think about that all the time. We're going to be sweaty and tired and probably ugly looking, but we'll be there together. So thank you guys all for coming, and I think we'll try not to keep you guys late. Hopefully Mark will wrap it up quicker than us. But next week is going to be powerful, and then the following week we're going to have Jeff Kotterman from Tri-System Nutrition, and he's going to be talking about a lot of this stuff and kind of wrapping it up and tying it all together for us. And Chuck Hicks wanted me to announce, he forgot to say it, but if someone's really struggling and really frustrated and really at the end right now and feel like they can't, it's too much for them, he says call him. Come back and talk to him right now. He'll get your number. He'll give you his number. This is what his calling is going to be, and I think he's going to reach a lot. Like I told him from the beginning, he's going to reach a lot more people than we are because he's been there. He's been through the struggles and been through the bottom of the pit. So just thank you all for coming. Thank you for your time. I know it's hard to take time away from family, but we appreciate it.